All right. I've had this is the third video I've been doing on the Trump tariff. The first one was talking about my initial reaction to the 14%, and I will focus on Nigeria. The second video was going into the data and checking to see if indeed what the data is saying is similar to my impression when the news broke, and I realized it was different, entirely different. So I've done the second video on Nigeria. Now I want to do on Africa. And the reason I'm considering this is because I believe strongly Africa must respond with one voice. Africa must respond with one voice. Africa must respond with one voice. Africa, in my opinion, is at an advantage in the current Trump tariff. Maybe some African country, maybe not all African country, but to a very large extent, Africa have an advantage. So my focus this morning is going to be on advantage I think the Trump tariff have for Africa, or rather, the opportunities available to African countries based on Trump tariff. Based on Trump tariff. But let's look at the tariff again. The first I want to look at is the tariff specifically to African countries. Of course, we know China is 34%, European Union is 20%, Taiwan 46%, but let me look for Africa. South Africa is 30%. South Africa is 30%. South Africa does not look like one of the countries that is seriously favored in this conversation. It doesn't look like one of the countries that is seriously favored in this conversation, and that's South Africa, because I've got 30%. Another African country I can see right now is Madagascar, 47%. Madagascar, 47%. Then I can see Tunisia, 28%. Egypt, 10%. Cote d'Ivoire, 21%. Botswana, 37%. Morocco, 10%. So you notice the countries in Africa that are having 10% are the one I'm focusing my attention on, because they are the ones that have an advantage. They are the ones that have an advantage in the Trump tariff, even though I feel Africa needs to respond with one voice and have one tariff they are going to use, just the way European Union is going to do, even though we don't have a custom union yet that will allow us to be able to have a common external tariff. But I still feel Africa can do something serious about this by responding together. So Egypt having 10%, Morocco having 10% because Botswana is 37%. Algeria is 30%, so Algeria is not part of the African country that I think we have an advantage. Kenya is 10%. Lesotho is even 50%. Lesotho is even 50%. Kenya is 10%. Nigeria 14%. Namibia is 21%, so Namibia is not on the list I'm considering. Ghana 10%. Ethiopia 10%. So we have Ethiopia, we have Ghana, we have Kenya, we have Nigeria, and we have Morocco. These are 5 countries that are having a real advantage. Ghana, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Kenya, and Morocco are 3 countries in Africa, among others, that I think have a great advantage under the new Trump tariff. Now, the reason for this video is to show the low-hanging fruit that Africa can take advantage of. What are the low-hanging fruit that Africa can take advantage of under the Trump tariff? So what does Africa expect export to the United States? What does Africa export to the United States? Very important question that need to be answered this morning. So like I was saying, what does Africa export to the United States? African export to the United States include natural culture pearl, precious and semi-precious stone, vehicles, cocoa and cocoa preparation, ore, slag, ash, aluminum article, iron and steel, nuclear reactor, edible fruit and nut, rubber and article of thereof, organic chemical, electric machinery, article of apparel and clothing, inorganic chemical, mineral fuel, and article of apparel are all that Africa currently exports. So let me narrow down on specifically what African export to the United States. Crude oil. And crude oil export is predominantly done by Nigeria and Angola. Precious stone and metal. And this is predominantly done by South Africa, particularly platinum diamond. Vehicles. This is predominantly done by South Africa. Apparel and clothing. This is predominantly done in Africa by Kenya, Lesotho. Cocoa and cocoa product. This is predominantly done by Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Aluminium, mainly from South Africa. Natural gas from Nigeria, mainly from Nigeria. Edible fruit and nuts, South Africa. Iron and steel, South Africa. Rubber and rubber product, Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire. Now, these are the low-hanging fruit. They are low-hanging fruit because they are currently a major item that Africa currently exports to the United States. That Africa currently exports to the United States. So let's look at the potential of this market. The market potential is 3 trillion. 3 trillion. And this includes equipment and machinery, about 911 billion. Cars and transportation sector, 417 billion. Chemical, drugs, and the like, 316 billion. Crude oil, 276 billion. Metal product, 167 billion. Measuring instrument, 125 billion. Clothing materials, 122 billion. Toys, games, light fixtures, sport equipment, miscellaneous, 119 billion. Plastic product, 114 billion. Food item, 98 billion. Precious stone and metal, 75 billion. Vegetable product, 62 billion. Animal product, 42 billion. Leather and textile footwear, rubber and leather footwear, 32.5 billion. Paper product, 29, about 30 billion. Stone product, about 26 billion. 25 billion for wood product. Vegetable oil product, 16 billion. Leather product, 14.6 billion. Antiques and paintings and artifacts, 7.2 billion. Where does US import from? Where does US import from? 14.5% China, 15.2% Mexico, 13.6% Canada, 5.24% Germany, Vietnam 3.92%, India 2.85%. These are major countries from which US do is importation. From which US do is importation. Important question I need to ask is this. What are the possibilities available to Africa, looking at the low-hanging fruit, taking advantage of Trump tariff in the US market, looking at the low-hanging fruit and taking advantage of Trump tariff in the US market? When you let's look at Africa itself. Who are the major supplier of the US from Africa? South Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt, Ghana, Libya, Cote d'Ivoire, Tunisia, Kenya. On that list, Nigeria, Egypt, Ghana, and Tunisia, Morocco, and Kenya at an advantage, and I mean great advantage, by virtue of the Trump tariff. Tunisia is not on that list. Nigeria, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Morocco, of which Nigeria is 14% and the rest are 10%. Now, crude oil is mainly imported from Canada. Out of the 170 billion import of US petroleum, about 10 billion is from Africa, and about half of that is Nigeria. Now, which other country in Africa can take advantage of Trump tariff for crude oil? Ghana, Algeria. Ghana, Algeria. Then we have precious stone, precious metal, for which US is importing 75 billion. Out of this 75 billion, 8 billion is from Africa. Unfortunately, the major exporter in Africa, South Africa, has high tariff. Botswana is I'm trying to check the Botswana is 37%. Botswana is not part of it. So it's important to know the countries. So for this product, for example, I don't see Africa taking advantage of precious stone. How about cars? The import of cars is 208 billion. The import of cars is 208 billion. 208 billion for the import of cars. Mainly from North and South America. Mainly from North American countries, Mexico and Canada, Japan, South Korea, and Germany. 99% of the export of cars or parts to the US from Africa is from Southern Africa. Then we have $122 billion for textile. $122 billion for textile. And with the major product coming from China and Vietnam. Major product coming from China and Vietnam. The major supplier of this product is Egypt from Africa, and Egypt is among the people benefiting the 10%. Kenya is also a major supplier, 13%. Egypt for 3.5% out of a $3.34 billion of textile export from Africa. So, the like of Morocco, the like of Egypt and Kenya are well positioned to take advantage, of this 10%. So this 10% from Africa, we have Ghana, we have Ethiopia, 10%, 10%. Then we have Kenya, 10%. Then we have Egypt, 10%. Then we have Nigeria, 14%. So about 6 countries. 6 countries. So Ethiopia, Kenya, and Egypt are positioned to take advantage of the textile industry. The textile industry. In the United States, how about cocoa? How about cocoa and cocoa products? The demand is about 6.47 billion. 6.47 billion. 6.47 billion. The demand of cocoa, processed cocoa product operation, a lot is coming from Canada and Mexico, and some from Europe, and also from Africa, including Indonesia and Malaysia. But the demand from Africa is 1.2 billion out of the 6.5 billion global demand of cocoa by the United States. Two countries are positioned to take advantage of this in Africa. Ghana and Nigeria. Cote d'Ivoire is a major exporter, but Cote d'Ivoire has been slammed with a duty rate of about Cote d'Ivoire has been slammed with a duty of about 21%. So Ghana and Nigeria are more positioned to take advantage of cocoa and cocoa preparation. How about aluminum product? Aluminum product import is mainly from Canada and China. In Africa, it's mainly from South Africa. So Africa will not be able to take advantage of the aluminum because South African duty payment or tariff payment by imposed on South Africa is really, really is really, really very high, and it's 30%. Petrol gas, 16.5 billion in demand, mainly from Canada and secondly Nigeria. But now, in Africa, Nigeria supply about 79% of the $1.16 billion demand for petroleum products. However, we also have Angola and Equatorial Guinea. But the major supplier who is also positioned to take advantage of gas from Africa to the United States under the new tariff, Nigeria. How about edible fruits? The demand is $22 billion. Edible fruits, and the demand is $22 billion. So, which country in Africa can take advantage of the about $600 million of this demand from Africa? Morocco, Egypt. Morocco, Egypt, Kenya, and Nigeria. Even though Morocco and Egypt are more. Now, the interesting thing about this is because of the duty or the tariff currently imposed on this other country, and the fact that Africa is already supplying this product, put Africa at an advantage for Africa to be able to leverage on the fact that its own product is now cheaper to sell more of this product and take advantage of more market in the United States. Then we have iron and steel. Iron and steel. iron and steel. Major source is China, South Korea, Canada, Mexico. In Africa, South Africa, Algeria, Egypt. But who will be able to supply this to United States based on the new tariff plan? Egypt, 20%. Currently supply out of African export of steel and iron to US, but now can expand that because of the new tariff. Then we have rubber and rubber products. The demand is about 34.6 billion. 34.6 billion. And of the 34.6 billion, only 308 million is from Africa, for which Ghana can take advantage of supply to the US. Now, what is he saying is that this affects Africa in such a manner that Africa will not be able to take advantage of this product. Only 6 African countries, Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, Morocco, Ghana, and Ethiopia, are the ones that will be able to take advantage. Will be able to take advantage of the Trump tariff because they are either at 10 to 14% for most parts, and most of them being 10% and Nigeria being 14%. Now, how do we take advantage? How does Africa then leverage on this and take advantage of it? How does Africa leverage on this? Number one, target product category hit by US tariff. There is need to focus on goods where China and other high tariff countries face US entry barrier. Electronics, machineries, apparel, steel, auto parts. African firm can replace Chinese supplier in certain of these supply chain. Strengthening local manufacturing and value addition. Move from exporting of raw material to value add. You know, if you look at the data, let me show you this data. If you are watching this on TikTok, on Instagram, the full video is actually on YouTube. Global Trade Tutor and Voice of African Trade on YouTube. I want you to check something on cocoa preparation. The demand of cocoa from the US is 6.47. Africa, out of that, is exporting about 1. Majority of the raw. But do you know majority of the finished product or semi-processed product are exported by countries that are not in Africa? Even though Africa is a major supplier. And why are they able to do that? They are able to do that because they are adding a lot of value. And Nigeria, African countries can take advantage of this value addition. Processed cocoa, refined minerals, assembly electronics, and finished textile garment. Developing economic zones. Economic zones. That's free trade zone. Set up special economic zone. Invite US companies to co-invest so that there will be export from this country to the US. And it will not be at the cheaper rate because US companies also investing. Improve compliance with US standard. Align with align export with US FDA, EPA, certify facilities to gain trust and access premium buyers. Key factor, agribusiness, pharmaceutical, cosmetic, food product. Invest in branding and direct-to-consumer channel. Build African origin brand for US consumers. Use e-commerce, bypassing traditional distributor. Strengthen export promotion and market intelligence. African government should support trade fair expo in the US. provide exporters with market research, provide success stories to attract more exporters, incentivize SMEs to explore US market with grants or tax relief, partner with US firms, China alternative, market African country with China +1 or friendshoring location for manufacturing and sourcing. Use Chamber of Commerce and Trade Mission to link exporters with the US importers. Joint venture, reduce risk and build long-term US export market relationship. Improve trade logistics and custom efficiency. Invest in port and rail and digital custom platform to reduce delivery time and cost. Join regional initiative to scale production and integrate supply chain. Efficient logistics equals faster US delivery equals better competitiveness. So now what I've tried to do here is to show that, look, indeed, Africa, Nigeria, Africa, and other countries in Africa, particularly Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, Morocco, Ghana, and Ethiopia, are at an advantage. However, they will not be able to take advantage of this new US market because buyers in the US are going to look for cheaper alternatives. And Nigerian, Kenyan, Ghana, Ethiopia, Morocco, countries that currently export similar products, can now work towards expanding their production volume to be able to cover that gap created by the US market, by the drop in demand for the US, by the drop in demand for the US, by drop in demand for the US. If we take advantage of this, Trump tariff might just become a blessing in Africa. See you in the next video, and bye for now.